Alright guys, our next project is going to be our leading lines landscape. It's going to be our second last project that we will be completing today, or this semester. So here's some terms I'm going to go over, as well as the project expectations. So we have lines, leading lines, 1-point perspective, and hopefully those you all are familiar with, as well as focal point and landscape. So line we've covered several times already, but it's defined as a point moving in space where its length is greater than its width. They can be 2- or 3-dimensional, implied, or abstract. Lines are basically the foundation of a drawing, and then they can help the viewer direct their eyes around the art piece itself. So especially for a landscape, it's really nice to have these lines to direct your viewers where they should be looking at. Landscape, some of you guys I know enjoy landscapes or want to draw landscapes, so that's why this project is going to be an actual landscape. But here's the thing, it's a depiction of natural scenery. It's not with people, it's not a whole lot of man-made things, so buildings and architecture and stuff like that. It's not really in there. A landscape is the visible features of an area of land, its landforms, and how they integrate with natural and sometimes man-made features. So a lot of it is like farmland, the wilderness, there's forests, there's the beaches, there's mountain ranges. Really it's endless, so try not to include people or man-made buildings in your landscape. Leading lines. So this is going to be the big feature as well as landscapes, but there needs to be leading lines inside your landscape. And what are they? Well, they're lines that especially appear in a photograph that have been framed and positioned by the photographer to draw the viewer's eye towards a specific point of interest. So these lines often direct the viewer's eye to a focal point and what they want them to see. So it helps your eyes follow around the composition, and again, they're a useful tool to create that visual flow or to emphasize a focal point. So especially looking at this picture at the bottom right here, we have the road lines that leads directly to the moon, and that's our focal point. So this is a really great example of leading lines to use like roads, sometimes even like, trying to think of what they're called, on lakes. I can't think of what they're called. Boardwalks. Boardwalks are great. Sometimes fences are great. Tree lines, roads, dirt roads, all that stuff are great leading lines to include in a landscape. And I'll show more examples of that. Focal point we've talked about many a times. It is the spot in the artwork that the viewer's eye is naturally drawn to. It can be of any shape, size, or color, but it is visually contrasting and appealing to the eye, so it makes it stand out. So it especially is important to have a focal point in our landscape so that there's the bell, so that we are able to see what should stand out in your landscape. And lastly, 1-point perspective is that it's a drawing technique that uses 1 point from which everything in the picture of the drawing it is set to. So this example on the right here, it's of a little kid drawing, but still it makes the 1-point perspective very clear, is that all of these objects inside the drawing, so the fence, the tree line, the road, goes back to this 1 point. So this point is called a vanishing point, and also there's a horizon line. So those of you that took Intro to Drawing with me or Mr. Creighton, you have been taught 1-point perspective. If you have questions about it, you can reach out. But also notice that when the objects get closer to the vanishing point, they are also smaller. So that's another feature to make sure you include in your landscape. Alright. So, what does your project need to include? It must use leading lines in some format to direct the viewer's eyes to the focal point, okay? So whether you're using a road or a boardwalk or a mountain range or fences or a tree line, there needs to be some sort of leading lines that point to your focal point, and make sure your focal point is clear and it stands out. Remember what is necessary to make a successful design and help the focal point out by making it contrasting and maybe a different size and stuff like that. This must be a landscape. It cannot have people in it, so do not include people. If I see people, I will automatically discount off your grade. No people, especially not stick people. There can be animals. You can try to do animals, but I don't want to see little kindergarten animals. And it can be real or imaginary landscape, but you cannot copy an image off the internet. Only to inspire you, but never to copy. So if I see something that looks exactly like a landscape I saw off the internet, please do not copy it. You will automatically get an F. Last but not least, no large empty white spaces. Try to fill the whole design with parts of a landscape. And then make sure you're using high craftsmanship. I do not want to see kindergarten sun in the corner type of landscapes. You guys are high schoolers and much better than that. So here's some examples. This is what I'm not looking for. I do not want to see something like this from you guys because you are high schoolers. So I know you all can draw way better than this anyways. I know some of you guys are not naturally gifted or talented at art, and that's okay. But these are way too simple. This is our second last project, guys, and a lot of you guys have been giving me really simple stuff, and it's a little disappointing and discouraging when I know that you guys can challenge yourself. So please challenge yourself with this project. It's easy, it's simple, you can be creative, you can do whatever you want with your landscape within expectations and reason. But please make sure it looks nice and neat. All right, so again, here's some excuse me, examples of leading lines. So they can be curved as well, but notice that they're all directing my eyes to the road, as well as the tree line is and the fence is. So there's railroads. Oh, I forgot railroads. That's a fun one. Even sometimes flower fields can direct your eyes and use leading lines to like a windmill, mountain range. Again, notice there's hardly any man-made things, even though railroads are man-made, but they help make the point. So here's a nice boardwalk. You can have a nice sunset in the background. Here's a different way of leading lines that directs your eyes across the image. I personally like it straight in the middle because it's easy and it directs your eyes right away. Here's again another one with the road, directing it to a mountain range. Again, the road as well as a tree line. And again, a boardwalk example. Here's some fences of examples that you can use. Again, there's hardly any buildings. There's no people. All nature, all natural. But these lines are helping your eyes go directly to a focal point to see. So here's some painted or digitally illustrated ones. So notice again, these lines are more curvy, and that's okay too. They don't need to be straight, but there are leading lines in it. But it's very colorful. My eyes are going to a focal point. This one at the bottom right is digitally created. Even though it's very small of a leading line, it's still in there with the river. Lastly, these are 3 great landscapes, but they do not have leading lines. So I know I'm going to get some that you guys are going to draw or paint or create some sort of landscape, and it's not going to have a leading line. Please make sure that there's a leading line of some sort where my eyes are going directly to it. If you're unsure of how to incorporate it or how to include it, please ask questions and reach out to me. I promise I will be available. All right. As much as I love that you guys can have the freedom to do a landscape of your choosing, please also make sure it meets my expectations. Lastly, here are your 3 options. Two-dimensionally, obviously you can paint it. Again, an imaginary real-life landscape with leading lines, or you can draw or color it using colored pencils or markers. 3-dimensionally, you can arrange nature to create that landscape. So if you have like sticks in your backyard, you can make some sort of leading lines to point to a focal point, as well as making a collage. Digitally, honestly, I think the best and easiest one is to just take a picture, especially those of you who live out in the middle of nowhere or can get away from the city to take a really great landscape picture. That would be great. But please do not do it if you live in the city, because guess what? Buildings are not a part of a landscape. It should be nature-made stuff. All right. Or lastly, you can digitally draw it. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing all your awesome landscapes, guys.